My name is Eric Panic. I was on the Tanner City High School cheer team. I was the last of my friends to get their driver's license, only because of how busy I was at the North Shore Animal Shelter. I have a 3.6 GPA, only because of how much I struggled in history and social studies. All my friends mooched off me in chemistry and math. I live with my mom, Rebecca Panic, though I'm moving to college soon so I can get as far away from this town as I can. My escape routes are plenty because of my good grades, and my teachers wrote thoughtful notes and recommendations, but I feel undeserving of it. I never have before, but maybe it was watching what happened in my own school, in Tanner City High, that makes me feel somewhat guilty for being able to take advantage of my opportunities. Chad still has his scholarship, but he certainly can't enlist in the Marines like he wanted to. I'm not sure how he and Becky will carry on. They've been dating since the 8th grade, so we hold out hope, but we've both changed so much. Becky says I'm the lucky one, that I still have my pretty face, but I hate that she said that, and I hate that I know everybody else thinks so too. We'll never go to the North Shore Mall again and laugh at how depressed the Easter Bunny looks, or go around smelling all the candles and lotion at the Bath and Body Works, while the boys boy about in the Lego store. Becky doesn't have a nose anymore, and Chad doesn't have any fingers anymore. Her smelling career's done, and his Lego building career's done, unless he wants to use his feet. I always felt bad for Elliot Tate, not because he was a chimpanzee, but because everybody treated him differently, because he was a chimpanzee. And that's exactly why I ended up taking Elliot Tate to senior prom in 2019. I wanted to be nice, give the kid a chance. I thought maybe he'd take to our friend group. Girls, people, listen, please. Do not take anybody to the prom out of pity. Please, I beg you. You got a good heart, Erica, my mother would say to me, and that's what she said to me the Saturday morning I told her that I was going to ask Elliot to go to the senior prom with me. We were eating bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios in the kitchen while sunset came in. I just know you and this boy will make such a nice couple at the dance. What's he like? I don't know, I said, 3 Cheerios floating in the milk on my spoon. He doesn't talk much. He really doesn't have any friends. Is he special needs? I don't think so. There's never a para or an extra teacher around him. I think he just doesn't know how to make friends. Is he cute? I pictured his big grayish pink ears, protruding mouth, big brown eyes, and sloped shoulders. Well, he's shorter than me, I said. I had math class with Elliot, but he always sat in the back of class, never participating. I knew he had very messy handwriting. Do you remember Aunt Petunia? Of course I do. Your great aunt. I'm surprised you remember her. Why do you bring her up? Well, Elliot can only communicate through ASL, I said. My mother lifted her brow. Oh, really? Yes, but I just don't always know what he's saying. I'll look over my shoulder and see him signing. Of course, Mr. Johnson doesn't know sign language, so he probably just thinks he's playing with his fingers. Anyway, I was wondering if you still have that binder for all the signs. I think it's under my bed. I abandoned my bowl of Cheerios and milk and hurried upstairs into the cozier room of the house. Big windows, curtains, white as icing on a cake, and my mother's yellow satin sheets. I rummaged around the floor for a little while before finding the old ASL binder, which had the basics of sign language. My mother used to think it was cute to bring me to see old Aunt Petunia, a woman who had to learn sign language because she smoked her own voice box out of her throat. I had some basic hand signs swishing around somewhere in my memory, but it had been almost 12 years since Aunt Petunia died. That had been an ironically quiet funeral. I was 7 then, and only cried because she had lost her voice before she had lost her life. I spent that Saturday practicing. First, I practiced how to sign, "Will you go to prom with me?" Then I continued with, "Do you like math?" or "What are your hobbies?" I practiced, "Will you go to prom with me?" in the bathroom mirror. My fingers flicked effortlessly, and my thumb moved like a gymnast, ducking and tucking. The next day, my mom and I went out dress shopping, where I got a blue dress that was going to pair with a pink headband. I had the idea of doing a beehive behind the headband for prom, going for a 60s look. And that Monday at school, while people were coming into Mr. Johnson's classroom, I sat in the desk next to Elliot and signed, "Will you go to prom with me?" He froze with shock, very enunciated on his chimpanzee face. If he had a voice, then he would have been speechless. I think I smirked at his shock. He nodded very frantically and rapidly signed back, "Yes, I will go to prom with you, Erica." I had to guess he signed my name because, truthfully, I didn't find Erica in the ASL binder. Knowing he knew how to hear English, he just couldn't speak it. I giggled out loud. "You sign better than a human." His excitement dwindled, and I worried that I'd hit a nerve. "I'm sorry," I said, eyes darting around in search of something to patch up my mistake with. "I thought you were cute, so I wanted to ask." His ears twitched up. His eyes sparkled, and though he smelled like a barnyard, he was very cute then. Anything that is happy is cute, and I made him happy. "What color dress will you wear?" he signed, so I signed back blue. He nodded and signed, "I want my mom to take me shopping for a tie." "What color?" I asked. "Yellow," he signed. I looked down at his homework. His writing was very messy, but at least he knew how to spell his name. "Tangents are hard, aren't they?" I suggested, to which he nodded. I continued speaking. "So-ko-ta sounds like a sorority, doesn't it?" He nodded again and did a little hoot to let me know that he found the remark amusing. Then he turned solemnly and signed, "I thought no one would ask someone like me." "Someone like you?" I asked, to which he nodded, and to which I asked, "What do you mean, someone like you?" He signed, "A chimpanzee. I'm not tall like," and then he pointed to Stephen, the cutest guy in Mr. Johnson's class. I looked back at Elliot and gave him a little chortle. "Oh, Elliot, that stuff doesn't matter." "But I'm not popular," he signed. "I'm ugly. No girls talk to me." "Well, I'm talking to you, aren't I?" He stopped. Maybe he had something to say, but just not the sign language to say it. Then he signed, "I didn't want to make friends. Your friends are not like me." "Well, sure they can be, Elliot. You just got to get to know them." "Why do you say that?" "They do sports and have girlfriends." I didn't really know what to say to that, but I knew hesitating was too delicate a thing to show in these kinds of conversations. So I signed, "Girlfriends aren't all that." This thoroughly amused him, and he bobbed his head in a nod so triumphant that he shook his desk. "You just need friends first," I signed, my sign language being slower than his. Something stubborn within him crept into his eyes and kept them from sparkling, even though there was so much black sea where sparkles couldn't take place. Mr. Johnson came, and I left to sit in my own desk, fluttering my fingers behind me to wave goodbye to Elliot. "Are you really taking Elliot to prom?" Becky scolded while we were getting ready for cheer practice. We were in our white and blue skirts with the school letters on the cheeks because our coach insisted he got better at face painting one another after the next basketball game. "I thought you'd be taking Stephen," Michaela blurted out. "I see how you two look at each other, especially after he scores a goal and is all full of himself afterwards." "It's get a basket, Michaela," Becky scolded. "I already talked it over with Stephen," I said while tying my shoe. "He's okay with it. Besides, Elliot wouldn't mind if Stephen and I sneak in a dance." "Why are you even going with him?" another girl asked. "Because who else is going to take him? He's lonely. Everybody deserves to go to prom," I said. "He's so weird," Becky whispered. "I don't want to be near him at prom." Michaela started snickering to herself. "What if I got Will to spike his punch?" "Don't do that," I exasperated, now tying my other shoe. "Girls, just be nice, okay? He'll understand when we go and stand by with my friends. I talked with him. He's actually very nice." "You talked with him?" Becky gasped. "Yeah, using sign language," I said. Michaela butted in. "Oh my God, you guys, I need to know. Lilac or magenta?" Our coach called for us, and all conversations were abandoned as we went into a robotic cheerleader mode. The next day, I sat next to Elliot before all the rest of our classmates came into Mr. Johnson's room. "I'm excited," he signed. "Oh yeah, me too, Elliot. I hope you think I'm a nice guy, a proper gentleman," he signed. "You already are," I smiled. "Quit being so shy. See, you can hold a conversation. You're a natural." "But not everybody understands ASL," he signed. "I'll be your translator at prom." Again, his eyes did that thing where all the stars went out, black sea. No more sparkling. Was this because he was astonished, surprised, relieved? His wide mouth made an O shape, which made me smile, because I actually did find him rather cute. "Okay, Mom," I called from the bathroom after checking the volume of my hair. I was satisfied that my headband showed just enough to make it seem as though I had a pink halo on my head. "I'm gonna get going." "Let me see you," my mother called back as I exited the bathroom and went downstairs, picking up the hem of my blue dress so I wouldn't fall. She stood between the bottom step and the front door and covered her mouth. She was looking at me the way people look at a rocket before it goes into space. "Honey," she mused, slowly lowering her hands, "you look beautiful." I gave an obliging smile. "Is Elliot going to come pick you up?" "No, he doesn't drive. I'm going to pick him up," I said, finally landing in the foyer where she kissed my cheek. "Please take a lot of pictures for me tonight." "I will, Mom," and I kissed her goodbye, going outside to my car and driving away. Elliot and I got to the school while it was getting dark out. "I see you got your yellow tie," I said, putting the car in park and turning off the ignition. He'd gotten the yellow tie. In fact, it was all he was wearing. He signed, "Yes, my mom took me to get it." "Well, I think you look very handsome, Elliot." I remained patient while he signed, "You look very beautiful." "Oh, Elliot, you're so sweet. Are you ready?" He nodded. We entered the gymnasium together, walking into the blue light, which gave the gymnasium the illusion of being under the sea. Parts of girls' dresses glimmered, while Old Spice made the air smell radioactive. We stopped so I could scan the room in search of the girls. I saw them at the punch bowl, so Elliot and I walked over to them. I could tell Becky was about to gush over my appearance, but then she saw my date. Her voice was flat. "Hi, Elliot." He waved, having to look up at her because he was only 4 feet. "Hey, you look cute, buddy," one of the girls said. "Killer tie, man," another boy said, and I was glad to hear that they sounded genuine. "Do you want some punch, Elliot?" another boy asked, and I was gladder to hear the sincerity in his offer. Elliot nodded, then looked up at me. "Oh, no punch for me yet," I said, while they got Elliot a cup of punch. "So, Elliot, how did you bag this baddie?" one of the boys asked, to which Elliot signed in reply. I looked down at him, only partially catching what he signed, but I knew what he was saying, so I translated. "Oh, I asked him." "Yeah, Elliot," one of the boys cheered. Elliot was quite humble, or he really just didn't know how to react. I didn't have time enough to find it quite odd that the first thing his peers would ever congratulate him on was getting a woman to go out with him. "Have you ever danced, Elliot?" I asked, to which he shook his head. I started leading him out onto the floor, where the lights were much bluer and brighter, and where the Old Spice radiation was more intense. I don't remember what song was on, but Elliot's attempt at dancing had to have been the cutest and funniest thing in the world. He swirled in place and made a snarl that suggested a cackle, though no noise came out. He was having fun, and I was glad to be with him. I mimicked the ladies' dance moves in Pulp Fiction. We returned to my cheerleader friends and their dates after a couple of songs. The boys told him they liked his dance moves, and he nodded, making that cackling snarl. I could tell that expression off-put some of my cheerleader friends. He moved his fingers, and I was glad I was the only one who knew sign language. "I thought you all wouldn't like me," was what he had signed. What's he saying?" one of the boys asked mid-laugh. My teeth hesitated atop one another. "He wasn't sure you guys would like him." "Elliot," one of the boys complained. His fingers moved away, reminding us just how long and thick each finger was. "You're just pretending." What's he saying, Erica?" Becky asked. Chad popped up and kissed Becky on the cheek. Typical Becky, she looked annoyed, but didn't protest her boyfriend's way of saying hello. "Hey, Erica, Steven's looking for you," Chad said. "Oh, hey, what's up, Elijah?" "His name is Elliot," Becky said, and I could tell she was trying hard not to roll her eyes. "Erica, Erica," Steven called, while pushing through the people on the floor. He came to a halt and let out a breathless wow while looking me up and down. "Erica, you look good too, Stephen," I said on the verge of giggles. Chad stood behind Becky and locked his arms around her wrist. At this, I saw that annoyance dwindle in her eye. I looked down and saw Elliot sign. "He's not going to steal you from me, is he?" "What's he saying?" Stephen asked. Nothing. Hey guys, Elliot and I are gonna go over there and have a word. That alright?" I asked, already preparing to shepherd Elliot off. "We know you know what he said," Michaela said. "Really, it's just harder to understand because it's dark in here," I lied. "But if you hold enough kittens at the North Shore Animal Shelter, you eventually become inept at committing petty sins like lying." Elliot was tugging on my arm, but I was looking at my friends. I glanced down and saw him sign, "Mine. You're my date. Mine, not his." He was pointing at Stephen at that last part. He started pulling me away. Stephen stepped forward going, "Yo, you okay with this, Erica?" Yeah, I'm fine. We just need to talk," I said over my shoulder. We reached the other side, the less crowded side of the gymnasium. "Elliot, what's wrong?" He was signing. "I don't want you to talk or dance with other boys. I understand, but you do know Stephen and I have liked each other for some time." "Why did you take me then?" He signed. "Because I thought you deserved to come with someone." "When do we—" He signed and then signed something that made my stomach drop. My mouth fell open and I wanted to step away, but I was just too shocked. He looked up at me, expecting not a yes or a no answer, but a when. I'm just going to spend the rest of the night with Stephen." Elliot started rocking in place and shaking his head. His big pink ears flapped while his head shaking grew more rapid. I released my voice. "Elliot!" He started hooting and hopping across the gymnasium. How quickly my schoolmates dispersed. Stephen barely had time to turn around when Elliot became airborne, spreading his long, way too long arms and landing on top of him. The music was still playing while my friends screamed, and Elliot let out a maniac chimpanzee laugh. He was latched onto Stephen like one of those giant hairy masks. Stephen spun around. Everybody screamed, but I stayed still and watched how Stephen spurted blood, purple, from under the deep-sea lights. Elliot squealed with some kind of demented delight after blinding Stephen. Elliot hopped off, turning until facing Stephen again. They were separating long enough for me to see the purple wishing wells that were now Stephen's eyes. The poor boy had his face lifted up, as though that would give him back his sight. His mouth was open, screaming, but Elliot took the opportunity like some kind of mid-combat Jason Bourne and reached his long fingers up to hook the fingers into Stephen's mouth. In synchronization with a cracking noise, Elliot ripped off Stephen's jawbone, the whole jawbone, and started twirling around with it. There was a substantial amount of blood purpling on the gymnasium floor. Becky had slipped on it. Chad went to help her until Stephen's jawbone ricocheted off his forehead. It stunned him long enough for Elliot to move to his next victim. Crunch. He bit Chad's fingers off on one hand, then bit the other ones off too, pushing him down and trampling on him like a trampoline. Stephen was balled up, crying and bleeding. Becky was screaming while watching her boyfriend being turned into a bouncy house. Except the bouncy house wasn't full of twigs and on someone's lawn. It was on the hard gym floor, full of bones, and shattering more and more of them as he went. And Elliot was having a ball. It really was a night to remember. I remember the rest of it in flashes. Becky's nose being bitten off and seeing the two fresh slits where her nostrils were. How different that made her eyes look. I remembered the popping sound of Elliot dislocating then tugging on Stephen's arm, hooting and squealing and screaming. Blood, so purple and dark, I could smell the rusty smell of it. Elliot worked and worked on Stephen's shoulder. He was insistent on seeing to it that Stephen was going to be an amputee. "Erica," Becky wheezed. She had never sounded clearer before. "You have to understand, I wish I had run too. I wish I had the wherewithal to be dispersed as well and gotten the hell out of that gymnasium. But I was entranced. I couldn't look away. It was horrible. I watched my friends and crush being torn apart. No, not apart, being bitten apart. Erica! Becky reached for me, crawling towards me on the thin surface of blood. That's when the police came in and shot Elliot. He caught the first few bullets on the back and chest, starting to hobble over to the police officers, but they emptied their pistols into him, about 2 or 3 of the shots opening his head. Music was still playing, but Becky was still reaching for me and wheezing my name while Stephen coughed to no avail. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that I followed the investigation immensely. What else was I going to do while I couldn't sleep? I also went down a rabbit hole of documented chimpanzee attacks on humans, and one in particular caught my attention. The St. James Davis chimpanzee attack in 2005. At an animal sanctuary, a man and his wife brought a birthday cake to Mo the chimpanzee, a chimp who used to live with them before being sent to the enclosure. St. James and his wife were eating the birthday cake with Mo when 2 other chimpanzees got out of their cages. The theory is that the other 2 chimps were jealous because Mo was getting cake and they weren't. One of the chimps came and bit off the wife's thumb before St. James heroically hid his wife underneath the table and absorbed the brunt of the chimp's envy. They did irrevocable damage to him. He went on to live his life forever disfigured and without certain extremities, all because 2 chimps were jealous that they didn't get any cake. Envy and self-entitlement drove these things to commit such heinous acts. I hope you understand the prejudice I've developed for this kind of animal, a hatred for them, and somehow a hatred for myself. I wish I could say I've stuck by Stephen, but my heart just simply isn't that good. It's not like my mother thought. It's not that I'm going around dating anyone. No, I'm not going to date for a long time. I don't even want to meet someone or something as sick and twisted and entitled as Elliot Tate.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning, as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.